So we're on the bottom of Chaf Vavam Beis that we started Chaf Hamid Beis, and we started the new parak about Ruh Bezdin. I asked the question, my Chavus also. I don't have an answer yet. The Gemara talks about that Bezdin saw the moon, the new moon, and the Gemara says that why they have to have testimony for the Losh Shmi Gedolah Maria. The Gemara answered, "Can go and Sheru B'Layla." For instance, if they saw it at night, I don't get the case at all because you only see it in the night. There's no such thing as seeing it in the day. So I'm a little bit perplexed by this Gemara. The Gemara sounds like you could theoretically see it in the day also. On the day 30, you see the new moon. There's no new moon on the day 30.
Excuse me, I heard that because they can only see it at night, that if the Adim who saw it declared the moon, it would be as if they declared it at night, and the Adus has to be in the day. So if they didn't have Adus, then it would be as if they declared it during the night.
Yeah, you're explaining what Ruh B'Layla means. That's good. You're right. I'm asking that the Gemara makes it sound like there is a case of seeing it in the day also. The Gemara says if you see it in the day, it's good enough.
Okay.
It's not. I'm just asking. There is no such case of seeing it in the day. The Gemara makes it sound like you see the moon in the day, and there's no such case. You don't see the moon. The new moon, you don't see it in the day. You only can see it at night after sunset. Okay, that was
good.
Okay. Well, to this Gemara here, this is 3 lines before it spreads. Ru'u Shlosha, which was the next case in the Mishnah. Ru'u Shlosha vein Bezdin Yom Dushtam Yeshivu Mechavreim Eitzel Yachad. If you had the Bezdin, was only 3. So the Gemara is going to say later on that the Bezdin, it's not any 3 gets together as a Bezdin to make Kiddush HaChodesh. It has to be Sanhedrin HaGadol. But of the Sanhedrin HaGadol, which is 71, so you have to have Chavrei Knesset. You have to have Chavrei Bezdin, Chavrei Sanhedrin. So before I spoke about if you had a lot of people that them saw it, and even if you have 2 Eidim, you still have enough Dayanim left, 3 Dayanim. The case was that only 3 Dayanim of Sanhedrin HaGadol, they saw the new moon, but they can't testify on their own. They can't be Mekadosh on their own testimony. They was going to say in a second. So you have to have 2 people that step down, and they're going to become the Eidim, and you have only 1 Dayan left. So you have to call that other Dayanim should come together in order to have 3 Dayanim. So you have to have 2 Eidim and 3 Dayanim. And the Mishnah says because it's not good enough to have 1 dayan, you have to have 3. The Gemara Kasha, the whole case about having to have testimony again. The Gemara same Kasha again. Why do they have to have testimony? The fact that they saw it should be good enough. And again, the Gemara is assuming that they saw it in the daytime, and therefore you don't have to have a testimony at all. Same case. They saw it at night, which I would ask that's the only case. You only see it at night, and therefore their testimony is necessary, but Hainu then it's the same as the Mishnah before. The Mishnah right before talked about that you had Dayanim that saw the moon, and they have to say testimony instead of being a Dayan. So what is the Mishnah adding on by this third case that there were only 3 Dayanim? No difference between having more Dayanim and 3 Dayanim. So it's only telling you the same Chiddush that you have to have testimony. It's not enough just to declare the new moon on what you saw by yourself, which the Gemara is going to say the simple pshat of the Mishnah that it wants to tell you over here that you only have 3 dayanim and 2 are going to be Eidim. So the main point of the Mishnah now is to tell you that 1 dayan is not enough. Simple pshat.
Rebbe.
Yes, please.
In the whole sugya, there seems to be an ambiguity that it seems that this is not really from a din edus; it's more from a din of ne'emanis. Is that how we explain it, or am I wrong?
Think so. I think it's edus. I think it says again and again that it's a din edus. The Gemara makes it pretty clear that it is testimony, and that's what it says. I don't see where you see that it's
it's a din edus. You can't have Avu Ben.
All the Gedin about Krovim, and here the Gemara also talks about like it has to be in the daytime. The Gemara seems to be very strong that it is testimony. So I'm not sure where you think different.
No, why do you need edus? The should be enough.
The Gemara is going to be psukim that it's like Mishpat. That's what the Gemara brought yesterday. Mishpat is called din of Mishpat. Okay, the Gemara continues. The reason why the Mishnah is telling you a chiddush over here, the point of the Mishnah is not to tell you that you need Eidim. That was already before the beginning of the Mishnah. It's coming to tell you that 1 dayan is not good enough. You have to have 3 dayanim. And you might think that 1 is good enough. Why should you think that? Because by Din Amaminus, 1 dayan is good enough. It's not that the Chamena whole Tanya. Din Amaminus Peshlosha, Vayamam Chalarabim, Danapil Biyachid. We just learned recently Pirkei Avos, Alti Dan Yachidi. The Mishnah Pirkei Avos says even though technically it is permissible for a Yachid Mumcha, if he's a big Mumcha, a big expert, so even a Yachid could also be a dayan. Over there it says it's not smart. Anti dan yechidi, shem dan yechidi ala echad, but halachically it's permissible. That's how I'm over here. That by dinim omis, by financial matters, one person could be a dayan, but the chiddush is
for the moon.
we're not talking about edus. We're talking. That's what the Gemara is saying. Yeah, not edus. The dayanos over here. Now going. That's what the Gemara is going to say. That even though by dinim omis, one person could be a dayan, by kiddush chodesh you have to have three. They might think that just like by mominus, one dayan is good enough. So So too by Kiddush HaChodesh. Kamash Pulam, that is not. By Kiddush HaChodesh, you have to have three. And the one says Taka, why is it not the same as money matters? You say that it should be so the same as money, that you could have one dayan. The answer is a parasha pasuk. Who's the biggest expert? Moshe Rabbeinu. And Hashem said even he's not good enough. Hashem said, you alone are not good enough. You have to have Aaron together with you. That both of you have to be the ones to be Mekadosh Chodesh. You have to have at least two. And then Taisus adds on, and in Bezin Shakul, you can't have equal Bezin, you have to have three. No such thing as having an even number. You have to have an odd number. So if you have to have, one is not good enough, you have to have two. If two is not good enough, you have to have three. And that's the most answer that the mission wants to tell you. You have to have three Dayanim for Kiddush HaChodesh, and that's halacha. Bottom line.
Is there a pasuk that tells us that?
He does it. The pasuk says you have to have lachem. That Moshe is not good enough. Moshe, even though he's the biggest mumcha, he's not good enough by himself. Hashem said you and Aaron. So you see, you have to have two, and plus you can't have even bezdin, so you have to have three. Bottom line, the Gemara is impressed with the fact that the people who are going to be the dayanim, the dayan at least, he himself saw the moon. We had three people, or the case before that,
Right,
many
the
people.
third one who pulled aside the one.
Two of them stepped down to
it is,
become, and one of them,
Dayan.
and one remained to be the dayan. There were three dayan, and one was a dayan. The one person's a dayan. He said he also saw the moon himself, and still he could judge the case. That's a chiddush to the Gemara. The Gemara, even though he's not going to be acting both as the witness and the dayan, he's only going to be a dayan, but he himself saw it, and that's not so simple. That the dayan who actually saw the case, could he judge it? The Gemara is going to bring a case that once he saw it, you can't judge it. You have to be more impartial to be able to hear all that's done. Of course, if the only case would be, of the only issue would be, did it happen? They saw himself that it happened. Yeah. But once a person saw something, he doesn't have, and he has an impression, then it's hard for him to hear different angles. Maybe there's other issues about it. Maybe it was a cloud over here, So the Gemara is going to talk about the fact that if somebody saw the act, could he judge it? The bottom line, Nusugya. Remember, the Eid Nas Dayan, our mission seems to say that somebody who saw it could still judge. He witnessed it. He still could be a judge. The Gemara does not mean.
What does mean in this case?
Does not mean to say. Rashi points out a few times that the Gemara doesn't mean that he's going to be both the aid and the dying. He's not going to be both wearing hats, because that the mission says he can't do that. He has to step down. But you see, the person who witnessed it could still judge it.
Right. But that would be interesting that two people come and they say their testimony, and he says in his mind that I saw differently.
Right. I saw differently?
Yeah.
No, so he was with them.
No, he's not. The point is that he saw the same. They all saw the same. Three people saw the moon.
Right.
And then one of them is going to be the dayan, and two of them will be the witnesses. And I'll get another two dayanim, but they're telling him, Rabbi Judge, we saw the moon. He's thinking to himself, I also know that. I also saw it. And it's okay. We say it's okay, even though he also saw it. We let him.
I think it's okay because he's just changing his clothes. He's wearing Dayan clothes. Before he was a witness clothes.
He wasn't. He never was. He wasn't a witness. He wasn't on the witness stand. He witnessed it, but he wasn't. He wasn't on the witness stand.
I mean,
that's what we're talking about. He doesn't go on the witness stand. He just witnessed it, and now he's coming to judge it. And even though he has witnesses, but they're not going to testify in front of him.
Why can't he just say, okay, tell me what happened. He was there. But tell me what happened. What did you see?
Yes. And it says that it's okay. And that's what the Gemara is saying. You see, even the person who witnessed it could still judge. And the Gemara says we find other cases that's a machlokes. And our mission says that it's good. Maybe it depends on the machlokes. Our mission seems to be against Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya, Sanhedrin, Shero, Echa, Shorogas, and Nefesh. So they own themselves. Sanhedrin, they saw. For dinner nefashis, you have to have 23. So they saw that somebody killed. They saw the murder. And then the question is, could they be judges on that? They surely could be witnesses, but then could they be a judge? Not to be both. You can't be a witness. You can't. What's the difference?
What's the difference? Somebody just killed somebody.
So I think the Gemara is going to say what you mean. I'm not sure what you mean, but the Gemara is going to say that. The Gemara says on the top, mitzasan nasu eidim or mitzasan nasu deyam. It's not a problem. that even the people who witnessed it, they could judge the case. Of course, you can't be both a witness and a judge. You can't be on the witness stand and then step up to the judge's table. You have to take one or the other. But even though you witnessed it, you can judge it. But Rabbi Akiva says no. Since they all witnessed it, they all could become witnesses, but nobody can become a judge because they're not going to be partial. Because now, of course, if the question will only be did he stab him, they know that they stabbed him, and we don't want them to be impartial. They know, but there are other kind of limudei zchus. There are other angles that might come up, and once they saw it, they're already emotionally involved. They won't be able to hear a limud zchus. So Rabbi Akiva says that somebody who saw it, somebody who witnessed it, cannot judge it, even though he's not going to be a witness. The answer is, like Chaim David said, if people tell Rabbi Akiva that our Mishnah could fit even according to Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva is only machmer by din nefashos. I can't come Rabbi Akiva basamela by din nefashos because we want to have a very open place that they should be able to find zchus for him, that they should have more impartiality, that it should be very definite they should be able to find the zchus. The Rachman Amma v'shaft way that we see the way when the person talks about judging it, it talks about in the positive case that they'll be able to find zchus for him, that they should judge him and find that he's innocent. So the pasuk says, make the bezdin in a way that they should be able to find innocence for him, and therefore the chivon, the chazyu, the katul nafshel. So once they saw that they saw him do the act, it's hard for them to be able to imagine any kind of limud zchus. But over here by the dinim of kiddush chodesh, maybe also dinim omenes, more to talk about it over here. If it's not as chomer as by dinei nefashos, maybe Akiva will be molded that someone who witnessed it could still judge it. And that's the halacha that by here by kiddush chodesh, that everybody holds that the ones who saw it, they still can be judges. They can't be both. They can't be a witness and also they can't testify and also be a judge, but they could have witnessed it and still be a judge.
There is also a case by Dinei Nefashos that Rav Shmuley Bornstein is machriya from a Ramban on the second commandment in Shmos, that because there's Kinas Hashem Keneged a Macy's, we have no mitzvah to be melamed zchus on him. So a Macy's is a case where you might also be able to do it, even though it's Dinei Nefashos.
Rabbi, tell me how to read it, please. Akiva Tema, Rabbi Akiva.
You could even say it goes according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva only says it over here.
Can you read that?
I feel Tema Rabbi Akiva because I'm gonna come Rabbi Akiva Hasam Ela B'Din Nefashos, because the Torah says B'Shavta Weida B'Tzilu Weida.
Adkan or Eitkan?
Adkan. That's all. Adkan. Only until here. Till, as you say, only here. But by Dinei, there it says Dinei Nefashos B'Shavta Weida B'Tzilu Weida. They have to be able to try to save him. Since they saw that he killed a soul, they can't see any merit for him anymore. Here, even though they witnessed it, they still can judge it. Now starts Hilchos Shofar. We finished. Now we're starting Yom Rosh Hashanah. Till now we talked about Kiddush HaChodesh. Many halachas about Kiddush HaChodesh that didn't have dafka to do with Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is also Rosh Chodesh, but there was many halachas. The whole parak was about the witnesses, the shluchim, how to interrogate the edim, and now we're going into the halachas of Rosh Hashanah that has to do with shofar. Kol hashofaros kisherim. All shofaros are kosher. So any kind of animal. Before we had a Gemara many pages ago that said that the minhag was to use that of a ram, and we're going to get to that again soon. But here it says any kind of shofar is kosher. Now the word shofar, just to point out, the word shofar comes to the word shofaros and it means hollow. So there are some horns of animals that are a solid piece of bone, and that's not called a shofar. And even if you can carve it out, it's not kosher. That's nothing to talk about. That's not even the Mishnah. It's not called a shofar at all. But there are horns of animals that are naturally hollow. That's called a shofar. And that the Mishnah says they're all kosher. Any animal that has a hollow horn is kosher. Chutz mishal, but that of a cow is not a kosher shofar, even though it's hollow. The Pnei Shehu Keren, because it's called a horn, it's not called a shofar. There are two words. One is a shofar, one is a keren. The word keren means a horn, and that maybe implies a solid horn also. But even the par, even the bull, the ox that has a hollow horn, when we say hollow, that means that you don't see that it's hollow. You don't see on a ram's horn that it's hollow either. But when you cut it off the animal's head, after they shucked it, they cut off the horn, there's what's called a zachrus. It's something that's protruding from the head and it goes into the horn and you separate it. I don't know how you do it exactly. Maybe somebody can show us how you do it. If anybody has these videos of how they take the shofar, So you'll see that the shofar is naturally hollow. There's another piece of bone that's protruding into it, then you separate it, then you get the naturally hollow horn. And that's what, and any, not only a ram, other animals also kosher, but here it says that one exception, a parah, the horn of a cow, because it's called a keren and it's not called a shofar. Rabbi Yossi, keren. It says every shofar, even that of a ram, is also called a keren. So it's not a problem that it's called a keren. It's called a keren. It's called a shofar, no problem. Because what's the proof that Rabbi Yossi holds that the other shofars are also called a keren? Because the pasuk says, "It's talking about Har Sinai, and Hashem says that when they're going to blow the long blast, it's going to be a long blast of the horn of the yovel. A yovel means a ram. A yovel means a ram. The Gemara will talk about that. A yovel means a ram, and over there it calls it the horn of a ram, and it doesn't say shofar a yovel. It says keren a yovel. So you see, the shofar is also called, even a ram is called a keren, just because that of a parah, a cow, is also called a corn is not a problem. So machlokes. The Mishnah, everybody holds that all shofars are kosher, except for one exception is a machlokes. Tanakama says from a parah it's not good. According to Rabbi Yossi, that's also good. The Gemara starts. I'll make it bigger. I didn't realize we can make it bigger. We're going to pass in like Tanakama that a parah is not good. Shafi come Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi answers very well. Rabbi Yossi says, as a pasuk, that even a shofar, a yovel, a ram is also called a keren. So what's the problem? The Gemara answers, Rabbanan call the shofar sikru shofar vikru keren. You're right. That if it's called keren is not a problem, as long as it's called a shofar also. But the parah keren ikru shofar lo ikru. Parah is a problem because it's only called a keren. You don't find any place where parah is called a shofar. Other kinds of a ram you find it's called a shofar, a keren, no problem. But if it's only called a keren, not called a shofar, that's what Rabbanan says is not good. Where do you see that that of a parah is called a keren? So a shor is like a parah, ox, a bull, seems to be all the same over here. So it talks about Yosef, he gives a bracha, b'chor sharo hadar, that the glory of him is going to be like the firstborn of the ox, b'chor sharo is going to be his glory. Karnei re'im karnav. Rashi says that Rashi is going to say over here that his horns, the horns of the shore, is like that of a re'im. A re'im is not a ram. It sounds very similar, but a re'im is a different kind of an animal, and it's called a keren. And according to the Drash, it says that the horns of the ox are like the horns of the re'im, so it's called the keren. So this word karnav, Rashi says this is the Drash. This is where you see that the horn of a parah, of a shore, is called a keren. So the Rabbanan say the problem is that it's called a keren, and you don't find any place where it's called a shofar. Again, all the shofars are kosher, even though it's called the keren, because it's called the shofar also. But here, it's only called the keren, it's not called the shofar. And Rabbi Yossi, the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yossi holds that it's good. The Gemara has to explain it. It doesn't say in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, it just says it's called the keren. But the problem is it ever called the shofar? So Rabbi Yossi is going to say, I found a place where it's called the shofar also. Rabbi Yossi will respond and say, I found a place where even that of an ox is also called the shofar. Where is that? It's going to be in a drash. It's not going to be in the Pashup Pshat. The paranam yikru shofar. The chsiv. V'sitav la'Hashem mishor parah. Over there, the pasuk says in Tehillim that my prayer should be good to Hashem like a shor por. Pasuk Pshat means like an animal, like a korban. That my prayer, my shir, should be to Hashem like ox. But the Gemara Darshins, it says shor and por, ox, bull. It's all the same. Why does it have to say two words for the same idea? From shor lama par, and par lama shor. Or Rashi may say that a par means a older ox, and a shor means a young one. But anyway, why does it say two words? If it's the same thing or if it's different things, it shouldn't say two. Ella my shor por, mi shofar. This is a drash. The pasuk says shor por, but we're taking away the resh in the middle, and you read a shofar. So it's talking about ox over there, and the calls in the drash is going to say shofar. So you see, Rashi says, I found the pasuk, at least the drash, where the horn of an ox is also called the shofar. So that's why it's kosher. And Rabbanan didn't hold it as drash. So why are they going to dash with the question shor por? If you don't dash in shofar, so why does it say shor por? Rabbanan, Dam Rabbatana, my shor por. What does the word shor por mean? Shu godel kipar, that it's big like a par. A par is a 3-year-old. The ox in the beginning is a calf, then it gets bigger, and then it's called a par. Rashi says that a shor is like the min, generic name. That's even when it's 1 day old, it's called a shor already. But a par is only when it's big. And the Rashi says that Rashi has to say is that my tefillah should be good to Hashem like a shor por. How could it be a shor por? Is it a 1 day old or was it a 3-year-old? So Rashi says it was a kind of an ox which was 1 day old and was ready a 3-year-old. How do you have that? When in creation, when Adam Arishon, when Hashem made the oxen, so it came out like the Gemara said before, it came out full grown. The first creation were made full grown. It wasn't made Zdafka, a little baby. So the tefillah of David is saying, "V'sitav Hashem Yishar Por Makrin Mafris," that my tefillah should be good to you, like the korban the Adam Rishon brought, which was a kind of a shor, which was a par. It was a 1 day old, which was already a 3-year-old. It was as big as a 3-year-old. Anyway, the Rabbanan say we don't see any place where the word is called, where the oxa, the horn of an ox is called the shofar, and therefore it's not good. So we explained the Mishnah a little very much different than the Mishnah that seemingly says. The Mishnah seemingly said, Machlokes was, do you ever find that it's called a Karen or not? Is a Karen a problem? The Gemara says, no, everything's called a Karen. The question is it ever called a shofar? So Yoshi says, I found a place where the ox's horn is also called a shofar. There's drash of shofar. The Rabbanan say we don't learn like that. We don't learn shofar means shofar means a shofar, and therefore there's no place we ever find that it's called a shofar. So that's Machlokes. We pass along to Rabbanan that the ox's horn is not good for a shofar of Rosh Hashanah.
What's the other drush for that?
The Gemara said shofar that it's a 1 day ox, which is as big as a 3-year-old. That was the ox. That was right. Now the Gemara continues to say more reasons for the Rabbanan besides what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said the reason is because it's not called the shofar; it's called the keren. And now the Gemara says other reasons why the Rabbanan hold that ox's horn is not kosher for a shofar for Rosh Hashanah. Ula Omar, Hainu time the Rabbanan. The reason of the Rabbanan is the following reason. Like Rav Chisda says, why doesn't the Kohen Gadol go in on Yom Kippur to the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Why doesn't he go in with Big Day Zav? The Torah says he should have special Big Day Lavan, special white clothing, the 4 Big Day Lavan that he doesn't usually use. The whole year the Kohen Gadol does Big Day Zav. How come? The fish ain't ketega and asas and ego, because the prosecutor cannot become the defendant. So that is reminiscent of the Egel Azov, the golden calf. So we don't use gold. But Hashem doesn't want us to use gold in the Kodesh HaKadoshim because it's going to be a prosecutor. We're trying to make a kapara for Yom Kippur, and the gold is there. The gold is screaming out that the Egel, it reminds of the Egel. So the same reason that they don't use gold in the Kodesh HaKadoshim because it's a prosecuting, it makes the prosecution of the Egel, so too the horn of the ox, which is the family of the calf, the golden calf, when it gets bigger, it becomes a bull, a par. So don't use the horn of something which is going to be reminiscent of the golden calf.
I could ask why you use a cow bechlal for korbanos.
The Gemara is going to ask maybe what you're asking is including Gemara's conscious. The one has a couple of kashrus. Below Va'ika Dampar. Even in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, they brought in the blood of the bull. There was a par over there that they did vidui and they brought the blood in. So the Gemara says the blood is okay. Once it's changed, you don't see the bull, you don't see the blood, even though it came from a par, but you don't see the actual. It's not the same originally the way it was. The Gemara says there was other gold in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Va'ika Oron, Kaporas, Krub. There were things in the Kodesh HaKadoshim that were gold, and you should say that that's going to be reminiscent of that golden calf. No. It's only a problem. Rashi says Chote Bal Yaakov means that the Chote, the sinner, the person, the people who did the sin, if they're going to be the ones who are going to come bring it in, like the Kohen Gadol are going to come in with the golden clothing, that's a problem. But the fact that it's there in the Kodesh HaKadoshim is not a problem. It's only the Chote, the one who did the sin, the people who sinned by the golden calf. They shouldn't be the ones who are bringing the gold into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Va'ika Kafo Machta. There's also a thing that the Kohen Gadol brings in. He brings in gold. When he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he brings in the cup that's holding the Ketores, that's made out of gold, and also the machta, that's the fire pin that has the coals on it, that he's going to burn the incense on, and you see that he's bringing gold in. The answer is Chote Bal Yisnoa Kamina. It's only a problem if the sinner, the man, is going to try to beautify himself. If he's going to wear big days off, he's trying to make himself presentable to Hashem. That's not the way to make yourself presentable, because you're putting on gold. Gold is reminiscent of the golden calf. But if he's just bringing it in, that's not a problem. Only if he's trying to make himself beautiful. But if he's just bringing it in to do that vote, that wouldn't be a problem. And Rashi says, but the Gemara is going to say soon, we didn't get to the shofar yet. One more kasha. If there's a problem of not using gold, then they shouldn't be able to use gold outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim either. Why is it only a problem inside? The Gemara says, maybe if them come in, it's only a problem inside. Over there is a problem. The Kodesh HaKadoshim over there don't use gold, but outside is okay. So now comes the big kasha. So the shofar doesn't have all that. Shofar now we need the shofar. You don't take the shofar in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. If you say the problem of the gold is only in Keteg and Asas and Egar, the prosecutor can't become a defendant in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So why is that a reason to explain our Mishnah? Is that a reason why you can't use a shofar? A shofar, even though it's from an ox, from a calf, but that's not a problem. It's not inside. The Gemara says an unbelievable concept. Since it's coming to bring in our good, Hashem should remember us for good. So you're coming in front of the Shekhinah, you're coming that you want Hashem to remember us. That's considered that you're coming inside. You see that the shofar has to do with the Zechronos. It doesn't talk about Malchus over here, but it says that at least the shofar is coming in for Zechronos. And that's considered you're coming into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so to speak. You're coming before Hashem. So that's what, and Rashi says this also takes care that even though it's not Chotei Bal Yakir, Chotei Bal Yisno, even though we didn't have problems with gold, other things, but the fact that the shofar is coming to give Zechronos, so then it has all the problems, and that's why you don't want to use it, because it's gonna remind of the Egel. The Gemara says the Mishnah doesn't say that. Very nice pshat, Ula, but the Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says the problem is because it's called the Karen, it's not called the shofar. You're saying a new reason because of Ein Keteg and Asas and Eger. The Mishnah doesn't say that. It's very nice, but the Mishnah doesn't say it. The Gemara says Chadav Kamar. The Mishnah means to be both reasons. One reason is what I said. Another reason is because it's called the Karen. Chadav Ein Keteg and Asas and Eger. But Karen. Two reasons. One is what it doesn't say. One is what it does say. One reason is because the prosecutor can become the defendant, and one reason is because it's a Karen. It's not called a shofar. If Rabbi Yossi doesn't know these two reasons, Rabbi Yossi the Kamar Ein Keteg and Asas and Eger. He doesn't know to the point we said that since it's L'Zechronos, so it's considered Bifnim. He says it's outside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's not a problem. And the other reason he said about a Karen, so he said already that it's called a shofar also. That he doesn't see the difference to say that this is different as far as Karen. Shofar, he finds a pasuk that is called a Karen. Everything's called a Karen and a shofar. So that's the machlokas. So we just had an Ula that said more than the Mishnah. The Mishnah said the reason why power is not good is because it's called the Karen, it's not called the shofar. And Ula said another reason Rabbanan might hold is because Ein Keteg and Asas and Eger, that since the shofar is L'Zikaron, is coming to remind Hashem, so to speak, of doing us good, that we should be remembered for good. So not to remind Hashem, to remember us for good. So that's considered L'Fnim. You don't bring in things that have to do with the Egel. And since the Parapara is the family of the golden calf, so you don't use that for Rosh Hashanah.
Rebbe, the kaf and the machta, are they only brought in the Heikel, or are they also brought into the Lifnai or Lifnim?
The five Lifnim, that's where they do the Ketores. How do you do the Ketores? He brings the Ketores in, he goes to the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the fire pan, with the coals, and the kaf that has the Ketores, and then he has to do the flip kind of juggling to get it into his palms.
Right. So I have a kasha. The kasha is like this. It's very simple that we knocked off the dama par because it wasn't the par. But once you say gold, the whole idea is that the gold is like the gold of the calf, so it reminds Hashem of the golden calf, unlike the dam of the par. So it should be that you could make the same complaint against kaf and machta on that basis of lezichron hu kibifnim dami.
It's not the Zichron. It's not the Zichron.
But it is, but Derek Agav, it is a zecher because it's the gold, and the gold reminds of the calf.
That's not what the Gemara means. When the Gemara says a Zichron kasi, the Gemara means that we're trying to bring a good remembrance. The fact that Ein Keteg and Asas Neger, that it's going to be reminiscent, that's not the point of the Zichron. The point is that when we do shofar is Zichronos. So the thing that's for Zichronos, that's the problem if it's Bifnim. But Kaf Machta is not the Zichronos, so it doesn't have that Chumrah. Thank you. Okay, next Gemara. Abaye, top line. Abaye Yoma, Hainu time of the Rabbanan. A new reason, a third reason. Shofar, Amr Achman, V'lo Shtam V'shlosh Shofaros. One shofar, and not two or three. But the Torah, even the guilty, Mischazik Shtam V'shlosh Shofaros. That the horn of the cow, it grows in layers, and it becomes like two or three shofaros. The same way you can't use two or three shofaros, so you can't use even one shofar of a par because it naturally grows in layers. Rashi seems to say that it's not layers that are like one shofar within the other, but it's like layers as it gets bigger and bigger. So it's like another ring, and it gets bigger, it gets taller and taller. So the shofar is made like rings, so that's considered a few shofaros, and that's not good. The Gemara says again, the Mishnah doesn't say that. But ton of nature Karen Kama. The Mishnah has a reason. The problem is because it's called a Karen and not a shofar. So why is saying a new reason? So Abai says the Mishnah means that reason also. The Mishnah means two reasons. The shofar, the Mishnah means both reasons. My reason and also the other reason that it's called a Karen and not a shofar. The Gemara is going to answer how come Rav Yossi doesn't know these problems. Rav Yossi Amlacha, first middle line. The common shofar, what's your problem that you're saying that it's not good because it's considered a few shofaros? Since they're naturally connected, so it's considered one. They're bonded together. It's true that they grow in different rings, but they're naturally bonded together. It's considered one. With the Karen, the other issue we spoke about already, that he holds everything is called a Karen and a shofar, that he doesn't hold it. So we finished the Mishnah with also two more reasons, Ula and Abaye. The issue of the Mishnah is talking about the horn of a para. A bull is a kosher. Rabbanan say no. Rav Yossi says yes. And the Gemara has two more reasons besides the Mishnah's reason. The Mishnah says the reason is why Rabbanan say it's not good because it's called a Karen, not called a shofar. Ula says another reason is because Ein Keteg Nasis and Neger, that since the shofar is coming to bring in our good remembrance to Hashem, so it's considered the Fnai of name, and you can't do that because it's going to prosecute, it's not going to defend. And the third reason Abaye says is because it's considered many shofaros. The fact that it grows in different layers, so it's considered three, and that's why it's not good. Three reasons why Rabbanan say it's not good, and we pass like them that a shofar of a par is not good. The rest of the Gemara go now a lot of Agadata today, and then we'll get back to a little bit more loch at the end on number base. The Gemara starts about the word Yovel. Third, what is this here? The third middle line. Me'ei mashma. The Mishnah spoke about the pasuk b'mshoch b'keren hayovel, and that means when the long blast of the horn of the yovel. What's a yovel mean? Yovel is a ram, and that's why the first we say pasuk on the pasuk. A yovel is a ram. Where do you find that a yovel is a ram? Where do you get the word that a yovel is a ram? In Arabia, that's how they say. They say when they say ram, they call it a yovel. So now the Gemara is going to come up with many other cases where
the Ramban is very against Rashi's Pshat here, because on the next daf, the next Mishnah, we're going to say that a ram is b'di'evid and a goat is lechatchila. So he says yovilu shai. Yovel comes from yovilu shai.
I'm not sure what you're saying. The Gemara says that a yovel is a ram, and I'm not sure what you're bringing in other issues that the Gemara is not talking about right now. I'm happy to hear everything, but it's not on the Gemara. The Gemara says that a yovel is a ram. That's what it says. It's good. A yovel is a ram. The Gemara brings a lot of other issues now, Mamish, as a bonus for different issues that we find a similarity of a word in different languages, and we're going to go to different languages and find what that language means to say. Like etymology, we're going to figure out the meaning of words. Just like we found out what a yovel means from what they speak in Arabia. Rabbi Kiva, more Gemara, each one is a bonus on itself.
I could just add one add in maybe. I refer to Moshe Levetsky. He had a whole shot in how the Sanhedrin moved 7 Lushanis.
They're all connected. That could be
They all
that connected
came from
to.
Lashon HaKodesh Mitzvah.
Could be because Hashem made all the languages at the time of the Dar Plugger, but there could be similarities. I'm Rabbi Kiva. Kishalati Lagalia, you call Lanida Galmuda. When this is not going to dash any psukim, we're just going to say a reason why in certain places Galia is probably Gaul, that's France. And they used to call Anida Galmuda. That's the way they called her in French, Galmuda. And he's going to dash what that word means. My Galmuda, what does that mean in French, in Hebrew, so to speak? Gamula Dami Vaila, that this woman is sort of separated from her husband. The fact that Anida, the word Gamul, usually you talk about a child when he's weaned from his mother, means that till now he's been dependent, now he's independent. So when the woman is given separation from her husband, that's called Gamula Dami Vaila, that she can't be together with her husband. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Kiva said that he was traveling. He had to go different places. He went to France. He went to Africa. The word they have for a certain coin was called a kasita. The mine of Kamina. Why does that help us? The Fushe mea kasita daraisa. In order to explain the pasuk says, I think coming up from Parshas Vayishlach, that it says that Yaakov brought chelik in Shechem mea kasita. How much is a kasita? Mea donkey. Now we know that it's a ma, like the Gemara said before, that it's in Africa, that's what they call a kasita ma. That's what the pasuk over there, when it said kasita, it's also talking about that same coin that they still call in Africa. Second wide line. When I went to the islands, and sometimes the Greek islands, the word for a sail was called a kira. And What do we gain from that? Laman nafkamina lefushe asher karisi li. Over there, it talks about when Yaakov said that I karisi li the Marasa Machpelah. Bury me in the Marasa Machpelah. That asher karisi li. What is karisi li? So the word karisi literally means to dig, like kara. Kara means to dig. But the word is actually that I bought. Since you find in Lashon Karchei Ayam, the word kira means sale. When it says asher karisi li, we're going to say a drash that it doesn't mean that I dug, but it means that I bought. Wherever that is, went to a certain place. Or you call the kala ninfi. They call the kala bride. The word for bride was ninfi. Or the tanagal sachvi, and they call the rooster a sachvi. And the Gemara is going to say, what do we have? What do we gain from all these words? These two words. The kala ninfi ma'ikra. What do you have a pasuk that we see a similarity that we also going to call ninfi a bride? It says yefei nof. Masos kaloros. We just had this in Tillim when we learned that we said it on Yom Sheni, and we had this in Tillim recently that the Yifei Nof. We said that the word Nof in the portion we found, we didn't find anybody says that it means like today a scenery, a Nof, but it means either a branch or it means a district, an area. Here the Gemara says a drash that is called a kala, that Yerushalayim is like a beautiful bride. Masos kaloros, the joy of the whole land. But the word Nof, the Gemara is naturally Nof is like Ninfi because in this place, Chum Kanesh Raya, they call a bride Ninfi. Tanagol Sechvi, what do we gain from the fact that over there they call the rooster a Sechvi? Rav Yudah, Rabbi, boy, Rabbi Shulman Levi, Micro. What do you see a pasuk about that? That a rooster is called a Sechvi. Pasuk in Eob, I think. Here's the pasuk. Mishas batuchos chachma, o mi nasan la Sechvi bina. Let's talk about over there the wisdom of Hashem. You man, because you don't know anything about the wisdom of Hashem. Who's the one who gave into the tuchos? Wisdom, and who gave into the Sachvi understanding. So what does Tuchos mean? And what does Sachvi mean? Mishas Tuchos Chachma Eil Kloyos. That means the kidneys. Who put into the kidneys wisdom? And who put into the Sachvi understanding? What's the Sachvi? Or Sachvi Vina Zetanagol. That a rooster, who gave the rooster the understanding to be able to know exactly when it's going to be daybreak, and he's able to the rooster's crow. So that is Hashem. And that's why we say in the morning, that's talking about the rooster. When you hear the rooster crow, so you say the bracha for giving the wisdom that he knows how to read an alarm clock. So the Gemara Dash many words so far. That's the Chazer over so far. Before we turn the page, we started with Yovel. That was the first word we dashed over there, and we didn't say Drusha. We just said that in Arabia they call it a ram. Then we went also about a Galmuda. That in Galia they call a Nida Galmuda. And also there was in Africa.
Different way before we say Gali was a place in Gaul.
I still said that's where it was, but the word was Galmuda.
They don't call Yovel a ram. They call a ram Yovel in Arabia.
True.
That is the basis of the Ramban. I'll tell you at the end of this year.
Okay. And the next thing is that a ksita is a coin. That's a mar. And the next point was that the word kira means sale. And the next one was that a kala is called a ninfi, and a tarnagol is called a sechvi. That was in Tchum Kanishvaya.
What is this? Is it a grammar?
Yes.
We're learning names, words.
Yes, words that we came in because of Yovel, and the rest of it is saying agav bonuses that they learned words from other places in the world, different languages, and we're able to figure out what drushes and
Kriti got anything to do with Mechira?
That's what the Gemara says.
That's what it is, right?
That's what the Gemara is asking. It's a drush. It's not a pashup shab. Kira means to dig, but the Gemara is asking in some places they word kira to sell. So we did already Yovel and Galmuda and Kesita and Kira, Ninfi and Sechvi. 6 words so far.
What's Galmud? I'm sorry.
Look, I have to go back. This is getting late already, so we have to go further. Bottom line. Levi Yikla Lahu Asra. Well, at the end, we're happy to do it again. Levi Yikla Lahu Asra. Levi came to a certain place. Asa Gavla Kamei Amalei. Amud Beis. We have to turn the page now. Oop, I got the wrong one. Yeah, Kavon Planya. Somebody came to complain to Levi that somebody was covering me. He covered me. But Levi didn't know what he's talking about. What did he do to you? Levi didn't know what he meant. Also, Levi came to the Beis Medrash and he asked, what does he mean to say? Amalei Gazalon Amar. He meant to say, what? Make it bigger. Yeah, thank you. He said that somebody was kabami, came to complain to the dayan. So he said, well, he didn't know what he meant. So he went to the Bishmedish. What do you mean to say? So they told him, I was robbed. Somebody robbed me. Gazallah amar Allah. How do you know that the word kaban means that he stole from me? That there's a pasuk that says, refers to robbing as the word kopei zayin. This word is a shoresh that it means to steal. Amalei Rava said to from Barnish said to Ravashi, even if I would not have known what it is, I could have figured it out. If I would have been there and someone would ask me, somebody covered me, have I menelach, Eichi kavach, my kavach, my kavach. I would have asked him questions to figure it out, like how did he do? How did he cover you? Why did he cover you? How did he do it? With what did he do it? Why did he do it?
What's he saying?
That you should be a chacham. That someone who has no language, if you're a dayan, and someone asks you a question, so figure out, ask different questions until you figure out what it is. Then I would figure out what he meant to say. But Levi didn't do that. But Levi didn't want to do that because he thought that maybe he's talking about Isura. So the Mefarshim here, I don't have a great shot, but some of the Mefarshim say that he thought that maybe he was talking about some kind of a znus, some kind of illicit relations, and he didn't want to get so detailed about it. Which the Mefarshim asked, what do you mean? If he has to find out, he has to find out. You have to ask intimate questions, you have to ask. So I don't understand what the Gemara means. They say the Aruch LaNer asked the Kasha, that even if it was most of these surahs, still he should have to ask. So I don't know. Some say that, that the questions wouldn't have made sense. If he would have asked without knowing what he's talking about, then it would be a foolish thing to ask questions that don't make any sense. So rather he went to the Bishmedish and asked, what does that word mean? Now the Gemara gets more bonuses, and we're going to talk about more words. Like Chaim David said, we're just going to say a grammar class over here to figure out what some words mean. The Gemara starts, Laviyad Rabbanan, my Serugin. The Rabbanan didn't know what the word Serugin means.
Serugin?
You know what it means?
Lines.
Oh, you're talking about to be Sagil. But the word Serugin is going to mean to do something with stopping, to pause in between. Shamur, but the Rabbanan didn't know that. Nowadays it became ready a word, but that's because of the Gemara. Shamur Amsa the baby Rabbi the Chazasinu Rabbanan they were highly pisky. She heard they heard the Rabbanan heard the Shifcha Rebbe, that when the Rabbanan were coming in to the yeshiva of Rebbe, they were coming in a little at a time. They didn't all come like the bell rang, everybody came in. They came in a few, then another few came in, and she said, how long? What's happening here? You're coming in Serugin. So everybody got to know that the word means a little bit at a time, with a pause in between. Another word, there's a kind of vegetable. It's called chalak. So they didn't know what it was. They say that it's purslane. 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 Anybody know what that is? Purslane. So they didn't know what it was. This word chalak lugos. One day they heard the Shifcha of Rebbe that saw somebody who was separating his purslane. What are you going to do? What are you doing this for? Separating your purslane. Anyway, they knew that the chalak lugos, she called it chalak lugos, so they knew that the word chalak lugos is this vegetable called purslane. It's okay, that's in English. It's okay. Call it chalak lugos is good. My from America. The pasuk says Salsaleha, and it's going to elevate you. Salsel, the Torah, or the Chachman, is going to elevate you. And they don't know what does the word mean. What does it mean, Salsaleha? What does it mean? But they heard also Shifcha de Rebbe. You were talking about a basket. So yeah. That's also not in Hebrew, but they didn't know what it doesn't mean a basket over there. Yom Machad, Shamor Lamsa de Rebbe, they have a Samala who Gavra, they have become Hafet Pasare. They heard the Shifcha of Rebbe telling somebody who was turning his hair, like curling his hair. What are you doing all this for? Curling your hair? So they knew that the word musalsel means to something to turn around. Mahapech. And they say
when he was a boy, he used to.
It says musalsel basari. So now we know the word musalsel. How come we did by the pace and not that's what you. but salsala. They say salsala means to dig into it. Mahapech. That when you dig into the Torah to try to understand it more and more, then it's going to elevate you. What's that?
You're turning it around.
Yeah. Amalei. Next one. There's a person who talks about Bavel. I'm going to be metateit with a destructive metate. What's that? How do you know he's a broom? How do you know? Okay, that's it. You got it from here. They heard the Shifcha Rebbe saying to her friend, take the broom and sweep. So they knew that it means to sweep. So it means I'm going to sweep it with a broom of destruction. One more. They wanted to know what the pasuk means. Throw on Hashem your Yahav, and He's going to support you. What does Yahav mean? They didn't know. One day I was going with that an Arab, a merchant, and with the tuna, I was carrying a package. He told me, take your package, take your Yahav, and put it on my camel. So he sees a Yahav is a package. So we got all these words. Package, load, a load. So we learned all these other words today. On Abba Beis, we also got Kabon means to steal, and then Seirugan means the things with the paws, and Salsaleha means to turn, and Teititia means a broom, and Yahabach means and Yahabach means a package, a load.
How many words are those used in that modern Hebrew? Is there anything?
Seirugan is, and Seirugan means to alternate nowadays, but I think that it's not really accurate. Here the Gemara says it means something with a pause, then a pause and a pause. And Matate is a broom, and Yahav, I don't know if it's used nowadays. Okay, if that's all good, so we continue to the next Mishnah. Shofar shel Rosh Hashanah shel Yael Pashut. So our Mishnah before said all the shofars are everything's kosher. Everything's kosher. This Mishnah seems to say that even though everything's kosher, there are some that are better than others. And here it says, Tanna Kamma says that best for Rosh Hashanah is to use not that of a ram, which we do, by the way. Our shofars are all that of a ram. When you go to the shofar store, all you're going to get is rams. But here the Mishnah says no, that you're supposed to be better to use Yael. Yael, they say, is a mountain goat or an ibex. And it's the mountain goats. When you go to En Gedi over there, you see the mountain goats. Maybe they have pictures of them on the En Gedi waters. That's the mountain goat. So it's more of a straight. It has a little curve also, but it's more of a straight horn. And they say that's the better one to use for Rosh Hashanah.
What's the real ones that
They're also rams. They're also, yeah, it's also curled. It's also curved, but it's a bigger one. It's a more adult, but it's also a ram. So as far as I know. So the Tanna Kamma says don't use better, not to use that of a ram, use that of a Yael, which is pashut, which is more straight. Also, there's other things come in which we don't do. We'll see the Gemara talking about a Beis Hamikdash, pig, mitzvah zav. Also, the mouthpiece, cover it with gold. The Gemara's going to say not by the mouthpiece, mamish, have to blow into the shofar, down into the gold. But in that area, there should be some gold over there. They cover the mitzvah, they adorned it with gold. Also, trumpets, which they had two sides, trumpets. Shofar Marich, the shofar would be blasting longer, and the chatzotzus, the trumpets, will be shorter. Shemitzvah sayom b'shofar, because today's Rosh Hashanah, the mitzvah is the shofar, so that's going to be first of all in the middle, and also that it blasts longer. The Mishnah is going to contrast Rosh Hashanah with Tiny Yos. Tiny Yos is the next subject, which means when they made a tinus because of tzara, if it was a drought, whatever it might be, so there's a pasuk uskatem b'chatzos to daven to Hashem and to blow the trumpets. And then it says there's also shofaros. There's also going to be a mitzvah to use a shofar. And here it says then b'shel zchorim. Then you should use that of a ram. A zochar means a male, but for some reason the male ram is not called, the ram is not called a male. I'm not sure. Any kind of male animal you could have called a zochar. For some reason it seems that there's something masculine about the ram in contrast to the female. Anyway, a zochar in the Gemara and the Mishnah means a ram. So it says that use a ram on the tiny tzibur. And that's kfufin, that's curved, that's naturally curved. The yal is naturally straight, and the ram is naturally curved. Then it should be covered with silver, not with gold. I really have the trumpets on the middle, not the shofar. The main point is uskatem v'chatzos roast. And the shofar is going to be on the side. Of course, two shofaros, two chatzos in the middle, and two shofars on the side. Shofar v'chatzos marichos, that the blast of the chatzos trumpets is going to be longer. Shemitzvah sayom v'chatzos, because the mitzvah of the tinus is really chatzos. The shofar is only going to be accompaniment, but the main character, the main instrument is going to be the chatzos. So the Tanna Kamma distinguished between Rosh Hashanah that the shofar is going to be a Yael, and on Tiny Yos it's going to be a Ayel. And then the Mishnah talks about Yovel. Yovel is every 50th year on Yom Kippur. There's a mitzvah to blow. What do you blow then? Shalva Yovel and Rosh Hashanah with Kiyah brachos. That Yovel of Yom Kippur of Yovel is the same as Rosh Hashanah of every year, as far as the Kiyahs go, and brachos. Brachos means that you have Malchus one is for Shafaros. It's not our subject right now. But as far as Kiyah goes, that you say mitzvah of Kiyah on Yom Kippur as it is on Rosh Hashanah, which according to the Tanna Kamma Also, you don't use a ram, you use a mountain goat. That's what Tanakama said. Tanakama said in Rosh Hashanah, he used that of a Yael Pashut, and he says Yovel is the same as Rosh Hashanah. Rav Yehuda argued, so we're very shocked so far that Rosh Hashanah Tanakh Mishnah says not to use an ayil. It says to use that of a Yael, of a mountain goat. So Rav Yehuda argues, and we're going to pass like Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda Omer, Rosh Hashanah talking b'shel Zechorim, or Yovelosh b'shel Yaelim. He does agree to the Tanakama that on Yovel Yom Kippur you do use that of a Yael, but he says again Rosh Hashanah. I don't say that Rosh Hashanah Yovel are the same. Rosh Hashanah you use an ayil. We're going to pass him like this. By Rosh Hashanah, we use an ayil, not like the Tanakama.
Like the straightage.
No.
Yeah, I own it straight.
Yeah, but I said I'm not sure what you're referring to. Ayil is a ram, and that's the curve. There's an ayil and Yael. Ayil is Aleph Yud Lamed. Yael is Yud Ayin Lamed. The Gemara doesn't call it. The Mishnah Sava didn't call it an ayil. It called it a dichra, Zechorim, which means a ram. So Tanakama says a ram is for a Tainus Tzibur, a Tainus on the fast day, together with the trumpets, accompanying the trumpets, and a
I thought it says the betanis b'shel zechorim. Isn't that a ram?
yes. Is that good?
So what did you say at the end? We're talking about Rebbe Yehuda.
Now,
Who
Yehuda
argues
argues and says that Rosh Hashanah is not like Tanakama. Tanakama said that in Rosh Hashanah you use a straight mountain goat,
Uh-huh.
and
And he says you use the curved ram.
right. And we pass like Rabbi Yehuda in that point. As we know, everyone uses on Rosh Hashanah that of a ram,
In Hebrew?
ayil or zachor. It doesn't say ayil over here. It says zachorim the whole time. Maybe not to get confused with a yael and an ayil. So it says zachorim, but that's what a ram is. Now Rav Levi is going to say different than everybody says so far. I'm Rav Levi, mitzvah shel Rosh Hashanah v'shel Yom Kippurim b'kfufin, v'shel kol hashofar shana b'pshutin. That Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is to be curved, which means a ram, and the whole year, which means tinios, then you use the straight ones. So now the Gemara is not going to talk about ayil, yael, just call it curved or straight, which means when it's a ram, it means that it's curved. When it's a mountain goat, then it's straight. So he says Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which nobody said this so far, right? Everybody agreed in the Mishnah that Yom Kippur was Yom Kippur means Yovel. Yom Kippur of Yovel is with a straight, with the yael. And here, Levi comes and says Rosh Hashanah, like Rabbi Yehuda, that is supposed to be kufit, curved, ram, and he says also Yom Kippur. The whole year, tanios, that's when you're going to use pshuta. That's when you're going to use a straight one of a mountain. But now in Rosh Hashanah shel Yael Pashut, that as far as Rosh Hashanah, he's arguing with Tanakama. With this Levi's in Amora, he goes against Tanakama. The more instance, he also like Rabbi Yehuda. He also like the following Tanya, which is our Mishnah also. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer could have brought our Mishnah. For Rosh Hashanah, you token b'shel Zechorim kefufin over Yovlos b'shel Yaelim. I don't know why the Gemara brings the price. It's the same as the Mishnah. That Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah that Rosh Hashanah you do use the ram's horn, and which is a curve, and on Yovel of Yom Kippur, that's when you use the straight ones. So he's passing like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, why not say so? Why does Levi say his own statement? He should say Allah like Rabbi Yehuda. Levi milchas like Rabbi Yehuda. Hamet Allah like Rabbi Yehuda. Havamena afilu shel Yovel. Now Rabbi Yehuda spirulate. Then he'd be passing all the way like Rabbi Yehuda, which would mean that he would say that on Yovel of Yom Kippur you use a straight one, but he doesn't want to say that. Kamash Malan, that he doesn't agree like that. So Levi's a third shita. He mixes and matches. He takes the shita of one by Rosh Hashanah and one by Yom Kippur. So he holds that both of them are supposed to be kufin. So let's take the three shitas. According to Tanakama, Rosh Hashanah is and Yovel, both of them. Let's talk about Rosh Hashanah and Yovel, not about Tanias. Rosh Hashanah and Yovel, both of them are the straight one. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, on Rosh Hashanah is the curved one, and on Yom Kippur of Yovel is the straight one. And according to Levi, both of them are going to be the curved one, both on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The next Gemara here, there's a question in the Gersa, but we'll take Rashi didn't have the Gersa the way that the Gemara has it. So just to say Rashi's Gersa, we're going to take out a couple of words over here, and it makes it much easier. Masaba, take out. Here's going to be Rosh Hashanah. We're taking out this word of Rosh Hashanah, and you can take out all these words of Yom Kippur, Kama the Pashid Inish, Taitet Femali, all that, I'm sorry, all that take out. I'll just read it. Mar Savar, skip the word. Mar Savar, Kama the Kayif Inish, Taitet Femali. One holds the more that a person bends himself over, not himself, but his mind. He humbles his mind. That's better. Means that the curved, what's the mile of taking a curved or straight? What does it symbolize? Everything's kosher. Like the Mishnah said before, everything's kosher. What's the symbol? What's better to have curved or to have straight? So he says that there's one side to say the more that a person is humbling himself, that's why it's better. And the other one says Marsavar. If you skip all those words over here, and now Marsavar, come with the Pashid Inish Daitet Femali. He takes out a lot of words over here. But us saying one thing: is it better to be curved or is it better to be straight? There's a Pashid Inish that a person should be straight. What does it mean straight? I don't know what it means straight. Curved means that he's humble. What does it mean straight? What is that supposed to symbolize?
Simple, no, straight, like not
crooked, not crooked.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the point. Straight. Yashar, to be straight. So that's the point. And Rosh Hashanah is the point of Rosh Hashanah. We're talking about Rosh Hashanah. If you take out all the other words, we're just talking about Rosh Hashanah. Is it better to be humbled and curved, or is it better to be straight? There's an interesting point. That's the end of the Gemara. We paskin that on Rosh Hashanah we take a curve, and also I think we're going to pass like Levi. We'll see tomorrow. We'll pass like Levi that by on Yom Kippur of Yovel also. Nowadays it doesn't happen yet, but on Yom Kippur of Yovel also to take a curved shofar like that of an ayil. So that's the interesting thing that some say that the Baltokeya, when he blows the shofar, why do we take a curved shofar? Because it should be curved and humble. So how should he hold the shofar? Upward, or that the shofar should be bent downward? So people do it upward because they say Allah Lakim B'Shmuah. But if you want to show the humbleness, it's really to be that it should be curved downward. And some say to do like that. Some say to hold the shofar downward, that the curve of the shofar should be down. That shows that. It's brought down to my real says like that. The minhag is to do like the Ramah that says that it should be up. Allah Lakim B'Shmuah. But Emmanuel, what do you say?
It's a simple thing that the Ramban is machriya that Rashi seems to say v'yovel dikra, as if he's defining yovel. The Gemara says korin ledikra yovela. It only says that a ram is called a yovela. It's not talking about yovel. Okay, the Ramban says that because on the next daf we just read, there's a whole machlokes in ram and yael, a goat, mountain goat, ibex. So he says not like Rashi. He says that the root of the word yovel is yovilo shai, meaning
I don't see the kasha. The Gemara says, how do you know that the yovel is a ram? That's the Gemara. Me'ei mashma d'hai yovel lishna d'dichra. That's what the Gemara says.
But it's not talking about yovel. Rashi says yovel dikra. It's not talking about the word jubilee.
Again, third line, you have the Gemara on the third middle line. Me'ei mashma d'hai yovel lishna d'dichra. How do you know that yovel means a ram? Is that what the Gemara says?
Yes.
That's what it says. A yovel is a ram. That's what the Gemara is coming to say.
Talking about the jubilee. The Ramban says not. He says
the Gemara says that a yovel is a ram, and that's what the Gemara says. What the Gemara says in another day.
in Arabia they call a ram yuvla.
It doesn't say yovel in the Torah. Doesn't say to take a yovel by Rosh Hashanah. It says by Har Sinai there was a yovel. So the fact that Gemara talks about what's Rosh Hashanah supposed to be, if it's supposed to be straight or curved, that's not dashing the word yovel at all. The word doesn't say yovel by Rosh Hashanah. It says yovel by the pasuk before that we brought. I'm not sure what's bothering. I'm not sure of the kasha. The Gemara says yovel means a ram.
All I heard was that you were equating this Gemara as defining the word yovel as ram.
Yes, and that's what the Gemara says. Look at the Gemara.
I am Ramban. I don't have time for it now because I have to go somewhere. But I am Ramban. He says the root is Yovilu Shai, and his Hachra is also that the homes and the slaves return to their original status. They are brought home. They are brought to their original status. Yovilu Shai. And that here it's only saying that in Arabia they called a ram a yuvla. And it has nothing to do with the source of the root yovel.
Yashikar. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back soon. Again, today, I'm sorry that we're not going to be back to Shulchan Aruch yet. The halachas of muktzah and everything, because I haven't gotten back yet. But we'll continue. Everybody decides either Pirkei Avos or Tehillim. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.